Hey now, Adam Reaver, fu-tone.com here saying check out Nez Says.
And we're live again. Today's January 14th of 2021, and you're tuned in to Nez Says, a place where musicians can get together and inspire each other to play more guitar. My name's Dave. Along with me is Ty. Always a pleasure to see Ty here with me. How you doing, Ty?
Hey, Dave. Happy Thursday. It's always great to be with you on Thursday evenings.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about tonight's show and our guest tonight, originally from Serbia, and then growing up and studying in Switzerland, and then on to the prestigious Berklee College of Music. Marko Jankovic is a truly original guitar player and musician. As a founder of his instrumental group, the Vaticans, Marko and his violinist partner are creating some of the most original instrumental music available today. Truly, truly exceptional musicians. He also produces very cool YouTube content with honest and direct gear reviews, true player perspective, and performance insight. Marko's content is always useful and helpful. We look forward to an engaging conversation tonight. Please welcome to the broadcast, Mr. Marko Jankovic. Marko, welcome.
Hey man, that was beautiful. You're gonna get me teary-eyed already. It's not even 6 p.m. LA time, man. So glad to be here, guys. Thank you. What an incredible privilege, and glad to be here.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Sir.
We're so glad you're here, and you graduated from Berklee in 2002. Tell us about what inspired you to make such a long trip and life-changing decision to leave Europe and attend Berklee.
You know, I'm that classic kind of. I call it Baby Arnold syndrome. When I was a waiter and I got to wait on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we kind of, bonded a little bit. He would come back to the restaurant and always then ask for me as a waiter. Ever since I'm a kid, all I can remember is wanting to come to America. And it's by far the best decision I ever made in my life. Whether things would have worked out or not. I remember being 8 years old and watching American movies on VHS back then, and they were hard to get, they were Serbian subtitle. And my aunt was always good at getting like these horror movies from America. And then I saw, Back to the Future and all these action movies. And ever since I'm a kid, all I can think about is wanting to go to America and do the American dream. And that's what I did. I did whatever I had to do to come here. Luckily, Berklee gave me a scholarship that helped me get out of Europe. I graduated Berklee and then fulfilled part B of the dream, which is to come to California and just, start whatever journey that was going to be. And what a journey it was and still is.
Well, the Vaticans are, look, we're all big fans of instrumental music, especially instrumental guitar playing. And then you form this group, which features a duo of classically trained musicians. It's very different. It's original. It feels fresh, but it's technical. How did that concept evolve from you, and how did you form the Vaticans?
It's a very interesting question. I'm actually in two bands. One is this amazing Southern rock band, which is called Six Gun Sal. And then my solo project, which is the Vaticans. And they both couldn't be different. I kind of always related to, we all have a career and we all have a profession, And the Vaticans initially started because it allowed me to do things I wouldn't be able to do in a band, I guess, which is why you have artists doing solo projects. But it was very important for me. When I was at Berklee, I got that shred thing out of my system. And at Berklee, it was, I remember sitting with friends in the dorm rooms and we would have bets who can make it through a Dream Theater album from top to bottom before making a mistake, And at the time, Scenes of a Memory was out, which was everybody's favorite album, of course, when you're shred virtuoso wannabe, right? And, we'd each take a shot and who can make it further, right, into song 4 or 5, or who can make it to Dance of Eternity and all that stuff. But I noticed that when I came to LA, I went to all these guitar shows, man, and it was nothing but dudes just sitting there. And the music, I felt like it was always a clinic. Very few guitar artists to me felt like it was a show. Mm-hmm. It always felt like they're there to see the shred stuff. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I knew that I needed another dynamic, and I also didn't want to do the typical classical music, neoclassic.
Ty, did you lose his audio?
I lost Marco's audio.
Yeah. Still don't hear you, Marco.
Uh-oh. Oh, Ben, thank you for that. Thank you for that link, Ben.
Is that better?
Yes.
That's good. Yes.
So I just, long story short, I didn't want to do guitar music. I wanted to do songs that just so happened to be done on guitar. And create melodies that people can sing along and are a little bit more pop and more accessible, that then also bring guitar players into wanting to play guitar rather than do show off shred for 30 people in a local bar, you know. And I think with Sheena I was able to accomplish that, to make it more accessible, whereas with Six Gun Sal you have your typical band, Southern rock, great songs, where there just so happens to be a lead guitar in it, you know, and it's more about the overall band thing, whereas the Vatican's allowed me to do really kind of my guitar thing, but present it in a more musical way.
That's very cool. I have a quick question about the sound difference in both bands. Now, in your Southern rock band, mm-hmm. do you try to get more of a classic Southern rock sound, very low gain, like Stratty type sound, whereas with your band you're more gain, the Guitar Hero type guy? Do you get the sound of the style of music?
Absolutely, and the Vatican's, you're very confined because you have to stick to what you're doing. It's instrumental music. So the room for variation is very, very little, no different than when people see a more famous guitar player. If you go see Steve Vai and he plays For the Love of God, there's only so much he can do. He's confined to playing it a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a band, when you get outside of the lead lines of the melody, you have a little bit more freedom. And we have 3 guitar players in the band, which is awesome. So 2 rhythm guitars and me on lead, and so I take all they rotate between Strat sounds, so it allows me to finally make use of all the Les Pauls you see in the background.
Oh yeah, sure.
And just kind of open it up a little bit more. With the Vatican's being a little bit more quote unquote virtuosic, you got to come with a little bit more modern gear, and you're more confined to the song because it's an instrumental song and people want to hear it as such, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because with the Vatican's, I'm sure that you're you should be. You're more of an artist because it's your music. It's your sound. It's your music. You define what it sounds like. You define what it is. But if you're playing classic rock covers or Southern rock covers, you should probably sound like the band you're trying to play.
Absolutely. And Six Gun Sal is an original band, but it's a Southern rock band, which is unique in itself for California, right?
Yeah.
It allows you just so much more freedom. And with the Vatican's, when me and Sheena write something, whoever brings the idea to the table, it eventually inevitably has to be an instrumental piece. We do feature vocalists because we have this great show, and we'll bring guest artists up, and it's really a show. It's a little bit of a Trans-Siberian Orchestra kind of a thing, but
that's beautiful. Yeah,
the guitar is never in the foreground. The guitar is the tool to it, rather than a lot of the stuff that I just personally, ironically, as a guitar player, got bored of. I just kept going to these shows, and it's just who can do. I mean, I saw this one guy; he was doing songs in 15th, 16th meter. And it's just just a bunch of nerds there, and I was like that too. Don't get me wrong, and I incredibly respect and admire the talent.
We all are. We're all like that. We all go to shows like this. I could do that better.
But if I had to choose between going to that or a Van Halen rest in peace show, it'd be no doubt. I want to go have a show and an experience, and I want the song to take me for a journey. And when you go to these Generation X shows, it's like you go from here to here because you're so wowed by what they do that you almost have to pay attention like a robot, and that doesn't allow you to go on the emotional journey. Whereas with a band, you can kind of just disconnect, and it really doesn't matter if you hit a wrong note. You have a freedom that you don't have when you do. I always ask myself when I see Dream Theater live, how does John do it? He has to plan when he's going to headbang because you play the dance of eternity. You just have to be so focused, and to me, that's just it's kind of a gift and a curse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
Well, you bring up a good point, Marco. With highly technical playing, can you kind of walk us through what it takes for you as a player to keep your chops at that highly technical level? I mean, how often are you? Give us an overview of what your practice regiment looks like.
That's a fantastic question, and I'll never forget when I got to Berkeley, and one of the teachers there said, I think it was John Finn. He was, he was giving us the spiel of who's going to be around after semester one and who isn't, and he said something to the extent of it's like going to the gym. It's an everyday thing, and you're better off just going every day a little, because if you miss a few days, it takes you a week to get back into it. And it's so true. You go on vacation, you come back, and it's like you feel like you lost all momentum. Mm-hmm. And the instrument is something that you truly have to be committed to. And I practice every day. There's not a day that goes by, no matter how busy I am, where I don't hold the guitar in my hands. I have to. For one, it's a lifeline for me. I love it so much, but also with the technical aspect of some of the stuff that I do or try to do, it just requires constant attention to it. And I truly believe with any craft, I don't care if you're a chef, if you're a singer, like my singer Anthony and Six Gonzalez, he has to sing. You got to keep those chords, you know what I mean? The muscle up. And I just don't think you're going to be good at anything unless you have constant commitment to it. I don't care if you're in business or on an instrument. You have to constantly have a momentum of forward movement, because instrument is a very easy thing to lose momentum on. And stop playing guitar. You guys know better than anybody. Stop playing guitar for a month, and it would take you 6 months just to get that month back. And it's misery, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure is.
Yep.
Yeah, it sure is. Marco, the Vatican's is and I keep coming back to that project with you, just simply because it's just so wildly creative and innovative. How do you stay motivated to keep pushing the creative envelope?
I
mean, what's the motivation behind the creativity?
I can tell you, the risk of maybe sounding a little corny, that lately there was music when you're young, and you do it for all the honest reasons, right? And you play an instrument, and it's truly a place to go and hide where you're untouchable, and nobody can hurt you in that little bubble of music, and not even so much playing as listening to it. Remember those songs, and you're dreaming of that high school crush you have, and you have your headphones on, you throw on the cassette at home, and then it gets into a phase where you're so preoccupied with getting good at your instrument that you kind of lose that a little bit, because the dream is to not have the fingers in the way of what your heart and soul want to do. Mm-hmm. And today, for me to be creative is not that hard, because the world around me is in such despair that when I play, I'm so grateful that I can play. Today, I was able to pick up my Eric Johnson Strats for 20 minutes in between running around and doing what I do, and it was the best 20 minutes. That 20 minutes to me was like when you like a fresh air for the soul, and it instantly cleared my mind, just being able to disconnect. You know why? Because for those 20 minutes, I didn't think about politics, what's going on, COVID, not being able to support my restaurants, people out of. For those 20 minutes, everything kind of was disconnected. And then you go back to real life. So now it became the opposite, where in the past I had to chase it. Now I can't wait to pick up the guitar and just kind of get lost and create or work on the next song. And then I have Sheena, who takes it, to another level with her violin and stuff. But it's really become that safe haven again that it was, that I remember from 20, 30 years ago when I was a little kid starting out,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool, man. It's cool that you're still in touch with that sense of escape, that you can disconnect from everything around you and be creative, whether that's for 20 minutes or for 2 hours.
For hours.
You run a great YouTube channel, and you feature a lot of great gear on your YouTube channel. Tell us about the role that the gear plays in your creativity. I mean, you just made mention of certain types of music lend itself to more modern playing experiences and playing devices. So tell us about the role of gear in your musical quest, and how do you make certain selections for certain compositions?
It's gear to me is the greatest thing on earth, right? I mean, for us, there was a long stretch in my life where I couldn't really afford any good gear or the gear I wanted. And it's like a chef that has these dreams of creating dishes, but he just can't afford the good ingredients, and so I had to learn to do with limited means, which makes me appreciate the good gear today more than ever. Not growing up rich is the best thing that never happened to me. So when you work hard to get something like a fine instrument, whatever that is to you, you appreciate and you look and you care for it differently, and you connect with it differently. And I started those reviews on my channel just out of that enthusiasm, thinking it's going to get, 10, 15 views at best. It was never meant with the intention of it being a channel. But the one thing it did do that I didn't even realize myself was how honest that enthusiasm was with respect to the good and the bad about that gear. And having a variety of gear is no different than a chef having a variety of ingredients to not be limited to that a meal he wants to create. That's why I could never be an endorsee of a signature guitar, even back years when I had these opportunities, because where once that was like the ultimate dream, I could never limit myself to playing just one brand, because I would always feel like I'm missing out. And it'd be like somebody tell you, okay, you can only cook with fish, but only with salmon. And to me, chef, why be a chef then, right?
Yes.
So,
correct.
I can endorse cables and amps all day long. That's easy. But to be limited to one model guitar, I'd jump off a roof. I would just, the thought of it gives me anxiety, Mm-hmm. So now I'm learning what I missed out on all these years, the difference between Les Pauls and this that I always knew on paper, but now get to experience in the flesh. Why a 59 is different than a 60, the different versions of the pickups. So now I'm so obsessed with it that over the last 8-9 years, I became an expert at it just because out of the obsession of wanting to learn about it. And of course, the greatest gear with respect to guitars coming and having been made in the US, such as Gibson, Fender, PRS, what might have you, and maybe with the exception of Ibanez. So there's so much good gear that when I see people badmouth other gear and limit themselves to one, famous thing being Fender versus Gibson or PRS versus Gibson, I'm here trying to figure out how I can get more of them. Not myself. Are you kidding? You know what I mean? So yeah. It's a great analogy because I'm a hobby chef. So I don't go on Amazon and try to piss on one. I go on Amazon trying to look at the reviews, what people say is a good ingredient or spice that I have not used. So I order it and try it and then go from there. You love it, hate it, and that's the beautiful thing of music. It might feel different to you than to me and vice versa,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's well said. It really is. I love what you said, that it's deeply personal as to what you want to do with it and how you want to apply it. You are not shy about playing modern guitars, modern style guitars, radical guitars when they're compared to things that were designed and manufactured in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Why is it that you think that modern guitars have such a difficult time gaining traction and acceptance in mass market? Why? Say, for instance, the Majesty. That is certainly a very, very fine instrument. It is a Ferrari among sports cars. I mean, it's a fine instrument. Why don't we see Majesties on more stages? Why is it that it has a hard time gaining acceptance?
I think it is such a phenomenal question. I get asked a lot. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Price point, and for example, with price point, there's such a big difference. There's no like middle road anymore when it comes to high-end instruments. It's either $5,000 or made in Indonesia, $400.
Pretty much, you're right.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. And then comes in Fender, and they give you an Ultra Strat for $1,800 out the door, and you're like, you know what I mean?
And it's an okay guitar. It's a good guitar.
Exactly.
But still not a $5,000 guitar.
Exactly.
Right.
And, the Majesty has a little bit of this syndrome of greatest strength is its greatest weakness. The design is incredibly unique. And so classic players, it's just picturing themselves with that guitar. I'm fortunate. I can go from a band, Southern Rock, Six Gun Salad, to the Vaticans, and I go from wearing a wig and dressed like Beethoven to wearing this shirt. So I can go from a Les Paul to, I think you see it in the corner, the Chrome Boy right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Majesty is so unique that sometimes I wonder if an instrument like that, and I'm obviously a huge John fan, and I think it's a phenomenal guitar. I sometimes wonder if it's a little bit too unique, where outside of what I call the fanboy that's going to buy it regardless, no matter what John puts out, which is great. That's totally fine. I'm like that with things. I just wonder if it's so unique to a point where it's too unorganic for certain people that come from a Les Paul background. And if you look at my comparison, speaking of the Majesty, there's a part on both of them where I opened the back. And on the 59, you see the beautiful bumblebees and stuff, and then on the Majesty, it's like a freaking Terminator, chips. All chips.
Right.
So it's very hard to bridge that. I think, and naturally when people don't understand it, they hate on it. And with the Majesty, you don't have no in between. You have the John Petrucci fanboy, and then you have the guy who just hates it for what it is. And I'm the guy who's like, you know what? I want to know what he was trying to do there. Okay, stainless steel through his neck. Okay, it's 17-inch, 20-inch radius. Okay, how does the boost work? How would it work? Is it a spice that I can use in the kitchen? And how will people in the restaurant react to it when they eat it, Yeah. But there's also a little bit of, I sometimes have that fear too. I don't want to go on stage and, you're trying to be John Petrucci.
I hate that. I know exactly what you mean.
And there's guitars that do that, and the Majesty or the N4, they're guitars that when you come on stage, immediately you scream, I'm trying to be Nuna and John, and I think that's working against it a little bit as well.
So I used to do gigs with this guitar right here, this striped guitar.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I do a gig and take that with me as a goof. Now, when you take that guitar out, you either get the guy that says, play Eruption, or the guy that says, you suck, you can't play Eruption.
Exactly. You're trying to be Eddie, you know what
I mean? And that's the problem with having those types of guitars, or those such identifiable guitars with the artist that plays them. I'm the guy that I could never play a Majesty guitar or a regular JP. First of all, forgive me, I don't really like John Petrucci. And I think he's an amazing guitar player. I think his technique is amazing. He's a great guy. He's a nice guy. I've met him a couple times. But to me, to watch him on stage is very boring. He stands still. After 5 minutes, it's like, all right, dude, how many arpeggios are you playing? I got it. To me personally. So that's another reason why I couldn't play a JP guitar. I identify it with that guy that's boring to me.
Yeah, and if I may just interrupt, say that it's so funny.
This is why Dave and I get along. This is why Dave and I get along so well, because I love Petrucci, and I love everything about his. I love everything about his playing. I love everything about his technique, and that he is so in tune with what he's doing. When the Majesty came out, I just could not wait to try one. And I was on a trip in New York, and I went to Sam Ash in New York, and they had one, and I was like, oh, I've got to try this. And I sat down with that guitar, and it blew me away. It blew me away. I was like, how is all of this working together? It is the most amazing playing experience I've ever had. But then I took a step back from the guitar, and I was like, but I'm not sure what stage I can take it on.
Now imagine me being a bastard child between the two of you. I love John. I'm so grateful for what he's done to promote guitar playing and being successful in music and respect. I would shine the man's shoes. But during halftime of the last Dream Theater show, I went home.
Mm-hmm.
I went home because you're there. And again, trust me, if the guy came in here right now, I would shine his shoes. I have no shame admitting that because of what he's done for the guitar and to promote the guitar. So in my book, you're already a hero, but it's at Berkeley, it was one thing, but I went to the last show, whatever it was, 18 months, 2 years ago here outside of LA. And it's just nothing but dude after dude standing like a robot and watching his fingers. And after half an hour, I was like, to me, to go to a show, I want a show. And I know he's really into it and obviously connected with his instrument. He's a grandmaster of chess, but it's at the end of the day, it's a clinic,
Yeah.
And so after the first hour, I was like, okay, I can go now. I'm glad I came to support. Every time you come to LA, John, I'm going to buy the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that, and I will do it. Even if I don't go, I will buy a ticket and give it away. But after 45 minutes, I'm overloaded, And I say this as a guy who loves shred, and like I said, you used to play those albums from top to bottom. Another problem the guitar has too, which is the same with the Paul Reed Smith syndrome, is you mentioned Ferrari.
Yeah.
The problem with the Ferrari is you can't live with a dent on that car. When you put a dent in my Hyundai, it's a dent and you move on with your life, and 5 minutes later, that's it. But if you put a dent in the Ferrari, now you have panic attacks. Because now you can't, everybody will notice and people do, and now your whole existence becomes about fixing it. Yeah. And it's an incredible ordeal. And to take a Majesty Purple Nebula to a show is incredibly impractical, because when you play live, it's going to get dinged up and scratched. It's a $5,200 guitar. People sell their firstborn to buy it, and so it never leaves the house. I've seen at Guitar Center Paul Reed Smith guitars from 1992 that were in mint condition. It's not supposed to be mint condition. It's supposed to look like my 65 Les Paul, which is barely, the hide glue is barely keeping it together.
Yeah.
And so it's you're not using it. What are you doing? Saving it for the next guy. And that's where the Majesty is. And you never see it play live because people are too scared to take it out. I know a guy that takes out his Majesty and then takes his belt off, his shirt, puts a wife beater on because he's so scared to put a scratch in it, or and then you're inhibited. You play, you're not free. The instrument now is holding you back. Whereas my Les Paul 59, I'll take it tonight for rehearsal, and I'll literally will set a beer on it, and I'll care if it has a scratch on it because it gives it more character.
Yeah, I understand.
Totally. Dave, that's such a good point that he makes. That if you're not going to play it, then you're just saving it for the next guy that will play it. I mean, that is such a good point. And as one person that is not very careful with his gear, I don't have a single piece of gear that's in mint condition whatsoever.
Same here. That's the point, you know.
Yeah, I mean they get used.
Yeah,
and
you know, I would love to see guys that on YouTube that play the Majesty but don't play Dream Theater stuff. You know, John didn't make the guitar for you to go and cover his songs. You know, they're already written, man. Go and create your own stuff. That's the greatest thing that Eddie ever told me. Eddie said, Jennifer, my friend, his sister-in-law, he said, tell him to take everything I taught him and go do his own thing, because he liked what the Vaticans were doing, you know, and that's the idea. But then you go on YouTube and everybody has a Majesty. What are they doing? Playing John Petrucci cover songs.
Yeah.
What's the point? You know, so yeah.
What you mentioned EVH, and we're part of we're big EVH fans. Like everyone tuning into this broadcast and in our chat, we're all huge fans. And you play a lot of EVH guitars. I mean, you've got Music Man guitars and PVs and EVHs. And how did you gravitate toward that guitar, and what does that guitar do for you creatively?
It's the greatest compliment I always say in my reviews that I could give any guitar maker. I didn't, because at the time when I was at Berkeley, the PV came out, the PV Wolfgang. Mm-hmm. And I was too young to be connected to the David Lee Roth era. And so coming to Berkeley and being into Dream Theater and wanting to play nothing, the more complex, the better kind of a thing, right? I didn't like Van Halen at all. I wanted to stay away from that. Oh, it's party. It's not serious music. If it's not shred complicated, where only no one but me can play it, it's not worthy kind of a thing, right? And so at Berkeley on Mass Ave across the street was Daddy's Funky Junky Music, whatever they were called. And I walk in one day, I'm broke student. I mean, at that point, I had to sell both guitars that I came to America with because I didn't really figure out what the cost was going to be to eat. Mm-hmm. And I walk in there and they have this gold PV Wolfgang. And this is during, I think the Balance era,
Yeah, sure.
My all-time favorite albums ever, period, of any band. From the moment that album starts with the Seventh Seal, man, it's just a locomotive to me. It just destroys everything in its way. And I was like, I got to try this. What is that? And he gives it to me. Man, I played that PV Wolfgang for 10 minutes. A PV. This is a guy who wouldn't even take you serious unless you're playing an Ibanez. That's how ignorant I was, right? Ibanez 7-string or deaf to all guitars. And here I am. I'm playing a PV. I'm like, oh, my God, how can I buy this? How can I buy this guitar? It didn't even connect to me that Wolfgang was Eddie's son, that it's an Eddie Van Halen guitar. I just saw that bird's eye in the feel.
It was just a good guitar for you.
Oh, my God. It was just a good guitar. Yeah. I know that Eddie was creating amps, and there was no internet like we know it today. Email just started. Mm-hmm. And I literally, I was working in this moving company on the weekends carrying furniture, and I just saved up. I literally sold everything that had any value. And that guitar at the time was $1,800 or something.
Yeah.
Which is $1 million to me at the time. I mean, forget about it. So they had some kind of, if you go to Berkeley store credit, and then every week you pay $25 something. I just somehow figured it out, gave classes, walked in there with $1,000 and paid the rest off over like a year and a half. And to this day, I have a PV Wolfgang in my collection, and that's how good I think Eddie's gear is. It truly is that good. I think the guitars, the amps, and that's what very few guitar players gave us. A lot of people give you signature models, or endorsed stuff. He actually went and created something between those three generations: Ernie Ball, PV, and obviously.
Yeah. So, do you still have that? Do you still have that gold PV?
No, I don't know. When me and my best friend graduated Berkeley and rented that 18-footer to drive to LA, once you came to LA in 2002 and you figured out how expensive it is to live here, man, it was literally, and minimum wage was $9. We were working at Tower Records selling CDs, and I got into waiting tables, and man, it was literally every month a struggle you sell a guitar, then you try to buy it back, and then you sell it, and I was playing just the Ibanez's $400 or $500 in monthly rotations that I just can afford to play to go to gigs with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I understand that.
Now, Marco, you've got in your collection, you've got the entire EVH collection from Music Man to EVH. Is there one particular model you tend to? And I know that this is going to be a loaded question, a difficult question, but is there one particular model you tend to gravitate toward over another?
To me, the EVH Stealth USA to me is one of the best all-around guitars ever created, hands down. Neutrally speaking, I love Eddie, hate Eddie, doesn't matter. To me, it has the best specs on paper, and it actually feels organic. You can tell whoever created it had a passion in creating it. Technically, the Paul Reed Smith, I don't know which one I have here today, the Wood Library, technically on paper is better specs, but doesn't even come close to touching the emotion that the EVH has to me. It just feels way more generic than the old PRS. The EVH Stealth USA, to me, is the all-around best guitar that I always come back to. It looks badass. People ask me live about it. It's that matte black finish, ebony fretboard, stainless steel, 12 to 16 compound radius, asymmetrical neck. The pickups are amazing on clean and distortion. It can handle loud amps. However Eddie did that after, I think, and it was his last kind of big creation, wasn't it? That's everything he did ended up at that EVH Stealth. And I see you have one right there, your ivory one. And
yeah.
To me, if I have to have one weapon to go into a battle, I can always know the EVH Stealth won't let me down. It's a masterpiece in my opinion.
Yeah, that's and the thing I love about the guitars is something that you just pointed out. It's extremely versatile, even though it's associated with it's associated with the greatest rock guitar player that ever lived.
Yeah, 100%.
It is an extremely versatile instrument, and it'll do anything and everything.
It's incredible. It's truly I've never had a bad minute on it. It was never limiting in any way. You see it in my videos and there's not a recording where it isn't on it. It is just that good of a guitar. Yeah.
That's great.
Dave, you're an expert in all things EVH. What's your favorite from Music Man through to EVH? What's your favorite?
Well, I will say the only EVH style guitar I have at the moment is the Music Man right here. At the moment, I kept it because my wife loves it, and that's her guitar now. She plays that guitar.
Better don't touch it.
No. So I think that once you set up an EVH USA guitar, because when you get it from a store or you get it from the factory, they're really not set up well.
That's very true, yeah.
But once you set it up the way you like it, and you take that goddamn horrible Korean Floyd Rose off of it and put an original German Floyd Rose on it,
brass block, yeah.
It's amazing. The reason why I don't have one now is because they're just way too small on me. They're way too small. It looks like I'm playing a toy. That's why I play Strat style guitars or bigger guitars. I have a 335. I have something that's going to be, for my size.
I told you, don't do an N4, man. Don't put no Nuno guitar around you, man.
No, God forbid. And you know what? I'm not like a fat guy. I'm not like a 2-ton Galento. I'm a big guy. I'm like 235, 240 pounds, and I'm 6 foot tall. But still, it's just so compact and so small that it's uncomfortable for me to play. That being said, it's made amazingly. The guitar is exactly what Eddie Van Halen and Matt Brooks said. Everything was done for you on that guitar.
Yes. Yeah,
everything. If you change one thing on that guitar, other than of course the Floyd, If you change one other thing on that guitar, shame on you.
Agree.
And the reason why Eddie doesn't change the Floyd on it when he did play, when he was alive, is because he's got someone handing him another one when it goes out of tune.
True, yeah.
So there's no reason to worry. You know, you play 2 or 3 songs, here's another one. But us mortals that can afford 1 or 2 maybe, you can't, we don't have that luxury. So you got to put the best piece of gear on that great guitar, you know? And don't say, that's not to say that there are some of them that stay in tune and work great, because some of those Korean Floyds work really good. Most of them, no. Some of them, yes. So you got to be lucky to either get a guitar with a good one, or you just change the Floyd out and you have an amazing guitar.
I think that's the Black Floyd and brass block, I think, in that one. Yeah, it makes a huge difference also for sustain. And like you said, they're built. It's just they're just fun. They're just fun. You won't have a bad minute on them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the kind of player that likes to try to go with one guitar all night. That's always the goal, right? I just think that you settle in to what you're doing. You've got one guitar. Whether it's in my head or not, I believe you play better if you can really have one guitar for the majority of the time, if not the whole time. And I will say, and I've said this publicly and I've said this privately, that Dave, it really wasn't until I took these guitars and sent them to you and had you do the work that you did on them, that they became that guitar possibility for me. That I could pick up the Ivory, or I could pick up the first year there and really go with it. Of course, you did an awful lot of work to it, and you would have to kind of go through what you did to each of them. But though they are, like Marko said, they're so exquisitely done from an experience standpoint, that once they're set up right with the right gear, because I know you changed the Floyds on both of those. Once they're set up right, they really can be that one guitar.
Yeah. Well, the reason I changed the Floyds on those things is, well, for 2 reasons. Those are all moving parts.
Yep.
And in my opinion, the ones that are made in Korea, the metal it's not quite the same. So it either fatigues early, or something moves in the saddles. And also, if you over tighten the nut, the clamps on the nut on the Korean ones, you'll get that divot in the nut and it won't stay in tune. But on the German made ones, I think the metal is stronger. So people that do like to really tighten hard, they don't really get affected.
Yeah.
Or they don't get affected as quickly.
Yeah.
So, and also the metal, the base of the Floyd Rose on the German ones are a little thinner, but it's stronger metal as far as I'm concerned. It's just a better unit.
You also did something with neck shims as well.
Because when you change those Floyd Roses, the Korean made Floyd Rose, it's thicker, so it sits a little higher.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So when you put a German Floyd Rose, that base is thinner, so you have to kind of shim the neck correctly so that the Floyd works right, and you have to lower the Floyd Rose in the body a little bit more. So in order to get the right action, you have to put some sort of shim in the neck. It cut up a little bit of a business card. You put a tiny bit right by the butt of the neck, closer to the bridge than the neck, and it just gives you the right angle, neck pitch, and it's right. So
it's guitars for setup, man. That's good.
Well, that's what I do. I played for a living for a long time, but I also build guitars and set up guitars. So
I love that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, Marko, what's happening for you right now on the amp side? I know you've got lots of nice amps. What's your go-to at the moment that you like to plug into the most?
There's two favorites, and you would think I'm the biggest Eddie fan because one of them is always a 5150. If you don't have a 5150 and you're anything rock blues related, man, you're missing out the filet mignon. You know what I mean of cooking. But I have a 5150 Stealth. I have an EL34. Here, right in front of me, is the one of the, I think, best heads ever made, modern heads ever made, which is the Marshall Satriani, the 410 HJS.
Yeah, great amplifier.
I think, to me, what they do, kind of like what John did with the JP2C, took the best of Marshall, put it greetingly, thankfully for us, into one. It has everything. It's an 800, a 6100 plexi AFD wiring in there. I mean, that head to me is just straight into the vein. Between that and the 5150 Stealth, get yourself a good little Fender DeVille or a Twin Urban. I think you probably have just about the widest spectrum you can cover outside of going 400 amps at home, you know. And then in the studio, I have some more. But these three are always here. These three are always, because at home I can record every sound in my brain. If there's an idea here or here, between the DeVille, the Marshall 410, the Satriani specifically, and the 5150 Stealth, there's not a sound you won't be able to get out of this room.
So awesome. What do you think about the way of digital, like the Fractal Audio or the Kemper? Do you use any of that stuff at all? Do you believe in it? Do you not like it?
I always remind myself not to become my own worst enemy and always go into an open mind. And I'm happy that when the Kemper came out, I was finally at a stage mentally and emotionally where I can have tunnel vision and approach it with an open mind. You know, again, just like with the guitars, Fender, Gibson, PRS, you know, oh man, if it ain't tube, it needs to die. And then the guys here, oh man, it's digital, finally deaf to the tubes. You know, so, and here I am, hey, let's explore it. If it helps make the meal better, you know. But I just couldn't connect to it in an organic way for me personally that I can connect dialing in that the Satriani head or the 5150. The Kemper, listen, the Kemper is an amazing invention. And I have so much respect for them doing it, making it successful. And, you know, if you have a bunch of stuff, why not add one? It's just another great tool, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. That's what these all are, tools.
Yeah. That's all they are. You know, I don't think I would be ready at this point to say the Kemper, I would be able to choose that over the others if I had to go on an island. If I go on an island, I'll flip the coin between the HJS and the 5150. The Kemper wouldn't even be an option. Mm-hmm. But if you are somebody that can get your vision expressed, and the Kemper does it, that's fantastic. So I played a lot with the Kemper. I tried it. I probably have 20 to 30 hours on Kempers, and I think they're an incredible tool, but it would not substitute in any way these two amps I just mentioned, or even the DeVille for that matter. And I don't know if that's maybe, I'm not a guy that's stuck in the past or future. I'm trying to embrace all of it, but there's a connection that I just couldn't have with the Kemper that I have with your organic amps, you know?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a tube amp guy. Love them. And I played Mesas for a long time, and
Gibson amp.
And loved me. Well, you know, we can chat about that real quick. And I loved Mesas, and then I think somewhere around 2015, I really started trying Friedmans, and been using those for a long time. But for the last couple of years, the Kemper has played a critical role in what I do live. In that, whether they're theater type stages, the Kemper plays a really nice role in being able to plug in and go straight in front of house, and it travels easy, and it's like easy to carry along. And Larry Mitchell, one of our guitar virtuoso and a good friend of Dave's and a Nez Says alum, has recently been coaching me through the Fractal platform, which is also amazing. I've had such a great time. I've told Dave the last couple of months that I've had one of Larry's fractals, that it has just been an amazing journey in learning how I can use that technology. And I think the key of it's what something mentioned earlier, Marko, is keeping an open mind while you're exploring all of these things, and not closing yourself off just because of marketing or past preferences, but keeping an open mind and understanding what these things can do for you.
Exactly. Yeah, very well said. Very well said, my friend.
Yeah. So you're running you do a lot of gear reviews that, which are probably some of the most honest reviews I see on YouTube, even down to how to best negotiate with a salesperson to get this piece of gear at this price. So,
I'll get shit from Sweetwater. My salesman jokes, but he's like, "Oh, now I get all these calls."
So, tell us about your journey into doing gear reviews on YouTube, and what started inspiring you to do it, and then to take the tone of voice that you take with your gear reviews. I mean, it's so honest. I mean, you say right up front, you're like, "Look, I'm not being paid to do this. I mean, I bought this with my own money, and here's the value."
There's gears now as companies, I get emails offering to pay me to review it, and I don't. I haven't done to this day a single paid review. No, it started all as an innocent. I bought this 2016 or 17 Les Paul Classic, and I was going to, send a video review to my friend in Europe, because he was in France at the time, and there, of course, in France or in Europe, everything costs 10 times more and harder to get, and you don't have. People here don't know how lucky they are that grow up in America. You go into a guitar store, whatever, Sweetwater, and you have everything the next day. Just the selection, the choice. I didn't even see a real Les Paul until age 12. It was all fakes, and then in Switzerland I saw my first Les Paul ever, a Les Paul Custom. And when you see it for the first time, and I realized I can't send him a file this big, so I got uploaded on YouTube. So I tried to make it kind of from a third-party perspective, and just honestly kind of share my opinions. And next thing I know, that thing had like 60,000 views, and the rest is history. And now I get bombarded. I'm in a blessed way with questions and emails from all over the world, from people asking this and that, which I try to answer as much as I can. And I think people just truly bought into that honest enthusiasm of, hey, I'm not trying to sell you something, because I generally wasn't. I tell you what I was really trying to do, maybe without even knowing, looking back now. I'll give you one better. I think I wanted to protect the musician from being sold something and not be taken advantage of, like I think I was when I was younger and naive to gear, because the sales guy had to meet a certain quota. Mm-hmm. And so I think, when some of this signature stuff is $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, which is a lot of money.
Yes.
If you want a good PRS, it's $4,600. And then, I know they're going to say, yeah, but you can get an SC for $800. No, you can't. It's not the same.
No way.
It isn't. So let's stop BSing and lying. It isn't. Okay. And there are people that save a lot and work hard. These kids that are, all the stores tell them, oh, this is the greatest. And these stores, they do incredible productions. That's why I never mic this stuff, because I want to show you the diversity of the pickups. Not what it's going to sound like. I have a degree in Pro Tools engineering, man. If I engineer this thing, I can make a $300 Squire sound great. So, and the stores do that. So I think we're getting a phantom image, and not always the truthfulness. And I'm not saying they're trying to be deceptive, but they have to sell stuff to pay bills.
Yeah.
I don't, and I try to, of course, be as respectful as I can. But if there's something that I think is a shortcut, I want to point it out, because I want that kid to know before he goes and spends $4,000 on a guitar. Because, when I was at Berkeley, you can get a great guitar for $1,200. You just can't do that anymore. Now it's either in Indonesia, $800 or $400, or freaking you need to spend $4,000. It feels like sometimes to get a decent guitar, and which is why I always crack up. With my PRS, it's for the working man. That was always their motto, which they stopped using. What working man do you know that has $4,600? And then buy a guitar that he's afraid to take out and ding up. So,
right. That's a good point.
It was all about just honestly, truthfully being honest about it, which to me was so liberating. It was so liberating when people send me an email saying, hey, I bought or didn't buy that guitar because of what you said. And I love it because I can look any one of those builders and makers and companies in the eyes without having to fear that I was dishonest or said something that I don't 100% truly stand behind what I said and have on tape and color to back it up,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, you have taken some really nice guitars and you dive into the details. And for those of you that are watching, if you haven't seen some of Marko's gear reviews, he leaves no stone unturned. I mean, he will dig how well the back plate is recessed or not recessed on an expensive guitar. So every nook and cranny of the gear is reviewed. He'll take it outside. He'll place it on his patio and show you what it looks like in the light. And you've actually been critical of finishes and top coats and just just providing the prospective buyer with as much information as you can possibly give them. And these are some of the most detailed reviews. And some of the guys Chad in our chat said that he just watched your Majesty review, and he said that fantastic review. You should really check out Marko's channel. Ben has already posted a link earlier tonight to Marko's channel, and check out how he reviews gear, because he really does it from the perspective that we value as players. So you get a lot of insight.
And you just hit the word of all words, which is value. And again, I love the stores. I hope they sell 1 million guitars. I wanted to stay in business, and I support them. I try to support as much of them as I can, but you just said value, and that's what's so great. If you want an honest review, it's easy to put a green screen up and mic stuff up and make it sound good, but I always do it from the unboxing, because I want somebody that works hard for their money to kind of get a vibe of, hey, what is it like from the moment you bring the box in here? And that's why I always do it in here. I want to have that always repetitiveness. Okay, here's the box. When we open it, set the guitar aside. How does the case make you feel? You bought a nice watch. How's the manual? How's the smell? Does it have any goodies? Does it not? Does it matter? Did they cheap out here? What's the value like? And value in an instrument to me is the ultimate kind of judging aspect of how do you feel compared to what you paid. With that in mind, hoping to get a lifelong enjoyment out of that. And value is a huge thing that I think a lot of people overlook now, especially if they're caught up with just buying something because it has an artist name on it,
Yep.
One of my favorite things that you did, and one of the things that I got a lot of value from, was because you are so familiar with the Les Paul. You have so many different Les Pauls. You've got vintage Les Pauls. You've got custom shop Les Pauls. You've got production line Les Pauls. And you did a review of the new Gibson Signature Slash model. And you really put it to the test and said, does Slash's signature on this guitar, does it justify a $500 premium over a standard? And it was I don't know, Marko, that was a half-hour review of one guitar where you drew a lot of comparisons, and you really gave your opinion, but then ultimately left it up to the viewer as to whether they wanted to, pay the extra money or not. And that takes a lot of courage. I mean, because, look, you could make a valid argument that Slash probably saved Gibson. in 1987.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and he is a phenomenal guitar player, definitely one of my biggest influences, and he is a sacred Les Paul player.
Yeah.
And you took his new production line, which is priced to be affordable, whatever that word really means, to a working guy,
Yeah. Yeah, not only that, but with that review in particular, and again, listen, if I see Slash, I will buy him lunch and shiny shoes. What he has done for music to inspire players, but you can't allow yourself, especially as a musician, to be a fanboy to the point of denying value or feel like it's okay for a company to take advantage of that, And what really amazed me was how easy it would have been for Gibson to add a gimmick to actually make that guitar unique outside of the colors, and they didn't. And so I can't look at a 16-year-old and be like, look, go spend $3,000 when deep down inside, and I'm talking as a Slash fan who has Slash guitars, not guitars, and tell that 16-year-old go buy a $3,000, which is basically the same as a 50s Les Paul with a different color, when for $1,400 you can get a Les Paul traditional, which just simply is more Slash than this, and then of course the fanboys got rubbed the wrong way. But you know how many emails I've got, and I'm talking hundreds, not tens, I'm talking hundreds, of saying, and not that I did it for that reason, but just how good it felt to me. They said, I'm so happy you did that review because now I feel like I'm not obligated to buy it as a Slash fan.
Yeah.
And I would never do anything like that to take away sales from Gibson. Hey, I did reviews that probably sold Les Paul guitars, and I didn't do it because I wanted to help Gibson either. But I can't take a 16-year-old who's a Slash fan and tell him, look at me, I'd be like, go buy a $3,000 Slash, when I know it's and again, it would have been so easy to add a gimmick to actually separate the line, which I actually think the man would have deserved, and it was a disappointment because I was that kid. I was enthusiastic when it showed up here. Mm-hmm. I mean, look what happened. It came out. I bought it. I didn't get it for free. I called Matt. I'm like, ship it. Put it on my card. Yeah, send it. And I bought it because I wanted to keep it. And I'm a guy that has a BOS AFD, that has the regular USA, two of them. So it's just it was just listen, the truth will never long term be a bad thing, and I think when I started getting those emails where people were like, it was like a call, they were like, because of your review, I now feel I'm not obligated to buy it, and thank you so much, because I felt like I had to as a Slash fan, but by now I don't. I'm like, no, you really don't, man. You can get something that is more to what he actually plays and put Seymour Duncans in it, but listen, I get what Gibson is trying to do. It's smart, it's good, and at the end of the day, his name is on it. He has to feel good about it. If Slash feels good about it, if Nuno feels good about some N4 selling now for $2,300 with an IKEA neck, he has to look his fans in the eyes, not me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if he feels good about Washburn raising prices by $400 and no two, one being good, one not, it's his name on it, not mine. My name wouldn't be on it. And I say that as somebody who's been playing N4 since he's 15 years old, or N2s at the time. I couldn't afford an N4. So these guys have to put their name on it, and John has to put his name on it. He has to feel good about it. Everybody has to feel good about it. I just always had a hard time selling something to people that I didn't believe in. But when I did believe in it, then I'm shameless about selling it because I want you to have it. Otherwise, I feel you're going to miss out. So, and it's worked out great because I think in the long term, that honesty has helped getting me to some sort of success in life, you know what I mean, outside of music, which I appreciate when people notice that more than anything.
Right.
So I really like the Nuno guitar. I really like the N4, and I will say that I own one. Full disclosure, I have an N4, and like it very much. Dave, I know that you've had an N4. Marko, you were the first reviewer that I saw of the 4N, and you even tagged the original owner of the 4N in your description piece. To really tell the story of that guitar, and then you did a deep dive into the comparisons of the guitar. Because you are so familiar with that model, which model do you prefer, the N4 or the 4N?
The Davies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only N4 I now accept as an N4, especially with the garbage coming out now. But the 4N has some 4Ns in circulation were good, but again, hit and miss. And then the regular production N4 post 2017, again, especially at the value, the price point, it, to me is an insult.
Well, what's the difference between the N4?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dave. This is a good question, Dave.
Well, Larry Mitchell's calling me, so I just want to tell him that we're doing a show.
How dare you?
Hey, 1 second. Hey, Larry, I'm in the middle of doing a show. Can I call you back? That's okay. Talk to you in a bit.
Tell him we all said hello.
He hung up. I will, though.
Difference between the 4N and the N4 is, Nuno started buying back his own guitars, the Davises. I mean, think about that one for a second. So while and this was a Davies that was owned by a couple of gentlemen, and they did some modifications to it and adjusted necks, like a lot of us sent some necks down. This one gentleman that owned it did a really nice video on kind of the journey of the guitar when he discovered that now Nuno owns it, bought it from a fan after he had sold it to another gentleman. And so Nuno liked it so much, I guess, that the Washburn or whoever they are, wherever they are now, they decided to make a model out of it, and they did, and the 4N is a cool guitar, cool specs, because it's modeled after an already great guitar. And I had a couple of them that I reviewed, and I was very lucky to get one of them that was actually meant for him, 001. And then passed it on to a very good friend of mine, James, in Canada, which I think he loves it. It's a great guitar. The problem was with Washburn, there's a lot of problems outside of that guitar with respect to the company, the lack of being able to get anybody on the phone, the price point, which is insanity, not updating websites or product lines, and incredible, something that will ruin you, which is incredible inconsistencies in what you get. And clearly it's starting, I think, to bite them, because people are now gravitating towards chasing older N4s on the used market, which isn't really helping the company as a whole. It just is what it is. The older N4s were magical. Back to when Steve Davies built them. Even the custom shop in Chicago had, I think, a magical run.
Mm-hmm. I owned one of those custom shops a while ago.
Yeah, they were fantastic, 95, 96, 97, 99. But then 3 years ago when I went to NAMM, and it's nothing against the builder. Listen, the guy that makes them, I know who he is. He's a great dude. He's obviously paid to do that. I think he does the best he does. It's not him. I think he's obviously an incredible talent. I think just as a company, there's no specific leadership or leadership mission, And again, you see what I'm doing now is being incredibly honest to my own detriment, but that's the beauty. I'm not endorsed by Washburn or anybody. I can talk. I'm talking as a fan. You understand? I'm talking as somebody who remembers what it was like when you didn't have $3,000. And I tell you, there was a point, and listen, $3,000 is still a lot of money. But there was when $3,000 is a number that is above, you know what I mean? When you're averaging $80 at the end of the month in the bank. So value. And then they do this incredible price hike, like $400 $1,200 across the board. So if you want an N4 authentic, which really has nothing authentic about it, you have to spend $2,899 on that guitar. And the question becomes very fast, then outside of being a Nuno fanboy, are there better options? And so that's really, and ironically, it's heartbreaking for me to feel like that, because I grew up a huge Washburn Nuno fan, and still am a Nuno fan. But Nuno doesn't do anything to promote the brand. Of course, they had a falling out. He split with the company and then came back, and I assume hence the price hike, whatever. I don't know if it's financially motivated. I don't care. But the problem is there's basic, and then the Nelly came out, of which he mentioned 5 minutes on Instagram. He did one post about it, but in return he expects $3,000 for it. And the problem I'm having is, if I'm more enthusiastic about your product than you are, then why would I give you my hard-earned money? So there was a time where something like the Nelly would come out and I would go buy it instantly. And that went from that to I literally have zero interest to even go and try it,
Yeah. So it begs the question, Marko, if a young player, a beginner or an intermediate player that's looking for a second or third guitar comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm into this rock thing. I really want to grow on the instrument. I want to broaden my horizons. Can you recommend a guitar for me?" Where do you point them?
Depending on budget, it's such a spectacular question, and of course, there's so many different answers I could give you. If I truly had to give you an umbrella generic answer, I would probably point him towards EVH gear, because I think that for $900 you can get a good Wolfie, which is a really good guitar, and you can get a spectacular guitar for $3,000, the USA Wolfie. I think all around is a package where I feel confident he's going to get a good product for the price point. PRS SCs to me are still overpriced, because some of them cost more than a used Les Paul. So why? If I want to support USA, and I think that the USA made stuff is the best in the world, I generally believe that, because I look at some of the custom shop Gibsons and Strats, and even the regular production line, and those instruments are American DNA, just like Porsche's German DNA, and nothing's touched it. So, and then Ferrari Italian, so they earned their right to be that good. But Ibanez, of course, is a great thing, because you have such an incredible value, anything from $499 to even they now have $3,000 guitars with their modern, Vi stuff and RGs. But I feel like the EVH stuff all around is really good. Listen, you can get incredible Les Pauls for $1,200-$1,300 on Reverb, man. You can get yourself a Les Paul traditional that's just incredible. I mean, you can get Nighthawks for $900 out there. You can get even the Tribute. I have a Tribute which I love. I put a couple $100 in it for Kenny here at Performance Guitars to round the frets, polish, change the wiring, and for $1,200, when people say you can buy a good Les Paul, dude, it's one of the best Les Pauls I have, So Fender has incredible stuff for $800-900. Their Player Series, there's good stuff out there that people can get. I would kind of try to find out for the time being, with young kids, because so much will change what they're trying to do, and based upon that, send them anywhere from Ibanez to EVH, which is a wide range, The reason I can't send them to something like Ernie Ball or PRS or things like that, those boutique brands, is because I don't feel you're truly going to get the genuine Porsche experience unless you start coming with a $2,500 and up budget. That's just been from my experience trying those guitars. So I feel you have to come a little bit with more money if you want to truly get the gist of what these brands are about.
Well, if a young person comes to you and says, "Hey, Marco, I'm thinking about going to Berkeley next year, and I want to study at Berkeley. What guitar would you recommend I take to Berkeley?" Would your answer change?
You'll have a rude awakening. They'll force you to play jazz against your will.
Yeah, on a Parker Fly.
On a Parker Fly. I remembered. Oh my God, man. I would tell them. I'd say if you can get like a USA Stealth, so you have an all around. You want to come with an all around guitar. The Strat is too limiting because it's a Strat. The Les Paul will not give you the Strat, but I think the EVH Stealth can give you maybe the best of both worlds. And you're probably, unless you're born rich, you'll Berkeley isn't cheap. You'll have to, survive the city of Boston, which can be a unique challenge. So if you I'd say buy like a Stealth, something in that style that really gives you the most diversity. Because the other guitars are their own very unique. The Stealth calls a bit more of a range, I feel, with respect to what you can get out of it.
What I like about the EVH, the way the pickups are wired in, and I don't know if it's the pickups themselves or, I mean, it's just a three-way switch. What could it possibly be? But when you have it in that middle position, it is so chimey, it's almost Fender-like.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
They're still humbuckers, but it's almost, it's very pleasing to the ear. It's very chimey. That's the best way I could say it.
It's an incredible guitar.
Whereas on a Les Paul, it sounds good, but it sounds like two humbuckers on.
Which is why I always love the Nighthawk. I feel like the Nighthawk was so innovative with that stuff, But again, the purists, I think it only lasts like 5, 6, 7 years. And then, of course, the Gibson is, again, unless it's a Les Paul, it's not a Gibson kind of a thing. So, but I love my Nighthawks. I have 3 of them, and I just think they're so incredibly diverse and just beautiful instruments.
Oh, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. Yeah,
they're amazing.
One of the best players that we had locally that played out a lot played a Nighthawk, and he always and that was my first encounter with one. And you're looking at it and you're saying, "Wow, what is that? I've never seen one of those before." And of course, he was such an amazing player that he made it. I mean, he sold the guitar just by playing it because he was just so amazing. I mean, they're so versatile. Those guitars are amazing.
My Gibson and Fender group, and a lot of people didn't even know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then others, it turned out, was a huge following that people have and just, don't advertise them much because they always get asked, "Will you sell it? Will you sell it?" And even after I posted a picture of one of mine, I had like 15, 16 messages within the hour. "Will you sell it?" Because they're that sought after for people that do know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an analogy between a Les Paul and a Nighthawk and a regular style Fender, like a Fender pick. This is no Fender pick, but it's the same size, and a Jazz 3. So a Les Paul is like a regular Fender pick, and a Nighthawk is more like a Jazz 3.
It's a great analogy, man. It's so true, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. No, the Nighthawk to me is just such a great guitar, and always use it in the studio. Always, just a great guitar.
Mm-hmm. And so, Marco, I know that we're running out of time together because you have a session tonight.
That's our rehearsal. Leaving in about 9 minutes.
But I've got to ask you because anyone that watches your channel knows that you play Mesa Boogie sometimes, and they're like I said, I have a long history with that brand. Great amps. What do you think about the Mesa Boogie Gibson partnership, and what do you think that partnership has in store for the Mesa brand?
I think first and foremost, everybody needs to take a deep breath. Oh, come on, man. I went to these sites, including my own groups, and people freaking out. And of course, everybody's now a corporate expert and knows why, what happened, and blah, blah, blah. But, look, then it was obviously after Henry a big leadership change in Gibson, right?
Yeah.
And there's obviously a reason Mesa Boogie was up for sale. Okay, so what we want and what we wish is not always the realities of how a business functions. You know, the impression I'm getting from JC Curley, if I pronounce his name the right way, the new CEO, and I had a chance to chat with him a year ago at NAM. Sadly, no NAM this year. It's so heartbreaking, but.
Thank God there's no NAM this year because there'll be a lot of people dead afterwards with
Oh,
this
yeah,
COVID thing.
It would be impossible. I mean, you talk hundreds of thousands of people, you know, and I think that the guy is clear on his vision. I think he truly understands to be careful not. I think he understands the kind of cult following Mesa Boogie has. I think he gets that. I don't think he'd be successful the way he is if he didn't get the basics of a brand. I think he did well enough with Levi's to understand that. But what a lot of people don't understand, and so let me explain to everybody that's listening, a business has one function above every other function, even above our emotional feelings of that business. A business has one purpose of existence, and that is growth.
Yeah. Make money, or else it doesn't survive.
It's got to grow. And that's, I think, where Mesa became a little bit of its own worst enemy because, I mean, what's a good Mesa? $3,000?
Yeah.
$2,000 minimum? Can I get a Mesa Boogie for $700? I cannot. And I appreciate the purists. Well, that's why I love Mesa, because you cannot get a $700 amp. Well, that's great, because that probably means you're making $300,000 a year and you can afford a Mesa Boogie amp. But guess how many kids want a Mesa Boogie amp that can't afford one? You know what I mean? And now, of course, comes the challenge for a CEO and a leader to bridge that delicately and help the company grow without sacrificing the brand. And I always use that Ferrari analogy. You know, when Fiat bought it, everybody freaked out. But listen, nothing's going to change about Mesa. It's still run the same way. People think, you know, Gibson walks in there with guns and kicks everybody out and takes over the facility, and it's not how it works. You know what I mean? It's first and foremost the deal on paper right now. Everything is. I haven't seen anything from the report on the corporation the other day that leadership is being changed, but Gibson is the boss now. And so if Mesa is as good as it says that it is, just like Friedman says and Paul Reed Smith and Gibson, all they say, prove it. Proof is in the pudding. Grow the company, make it profitable, and get more damn Mesa amps into people's hands.
I also think that I think one of the big reasons why Mesa was bought out, or why they couldn't survive on their own, is because they don't discount their amps at all. It's one price for everybody. You got to pay the MSRP. There's no street price. Street price is MSRP.
Listen.
And no, you know, they don't. What's the word I'm looking for? There's no discount. You know, that's not really the word I'm looking for. But they don't compete with other companies. It's their price and that's it. And you know what? Other companies have surpassed them in quality. Maybe not quality, but in what an amp can do for lower prices. And they're stuck doing their thing, which is not a bad thing because their amps are great. But
which is you bring it to word number two of you know, a business wants to grow, but what does a business need to do that? And the famous word is adaptability. You know, and
correct.
And the problem is, you're absolutely right. You know, when you're Apple, you can do the whole one price across the board, but you're talking a profit of $4 billion. You know,
right?
When you're not a profit, man, you got. Listen, I ran a business. I can tell you how hard it is to run a business in California, and I obviously love Mason, and I want nothing but the best for them. But that's why I always, when I talk to fans, I think they somewhat get from me, who had businesses ups and downs, and if you're not able to adapt, you ain't gonna grow,
right?
And I think you know, I'm not concerned who bought them. My thing is, where are we a year from now?
Well, yeah, you got to look. You got to wait and see.
Exactly.
I also think bands like Creed and Nickelback killed that company.
Yeah.
They sold a lot of amps.
Yeah, but those amps also got
A victim of their own success, maybe?
they got characterized as this 90s kind of rock, tune your E string to D type of sound, and that's it. Because of the rectifier amp.
I remember in LA.
But the rectifier, I won't. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all, Dave. I think that you're right. I do have a slightly different perspective of it, though, because the rectifier really became the voice of the 90s guitar, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It owned the sonic space of 90s guitars. And my relationship with Mesa was primarily on the Mark side of the house. And I've loved a Mark amp ever since I heard Carlos Santana, play a neck pickup through a Mark series. I mean, that's magic. But I want nothing for the best of them too. I will say that the last two amps that Mesa has made, the Fillmore and the California Tweed, I just think sound amazing. And I love the sound of those amplifiers. Mm-hmm. And if there is more of that on the horizon, I can't wait to see what's next, even though I haven't played the brand in 6 years. Yeah. I'm playing a brand of amplifier that I'm very happy with. But but what they've done over the last 18 months has been really impressive from where I sit.
And how great is that JP2C? I mean, kind of like the Satriani had. John took those marks and combined them, and I wasn't going to spend $3,000 on no Mesa head, but one day I walked into the store on Sunset years ago and tried that Petrucci head. I was like, I don't care whose name is on here. It's that good. I got to buy it. Yeah. And that's the greatest compliment I can give you. I assure you, I did not buy that amp because the last thing I want is to give John Petrucci money. But I did because it was that good of a head. It is that good of a head.
Yeah. But I love the JP2C. And listen, I love the rectifier. I like the sound of the rectifier. And and listen, a PRS through a rectifier, I mean, it defined a period of time in guitar playing.
When I came to LA, you had to have a rectifier and a PRS and be tuned to drop D, otherwise you weren't a part of the LA scene. And I detested it and loved it, and of course I hated it because I couldn't afford it, and I thought those guys can't play and hated on everybody, and then loved it in the back end, you know what I mean? But yeah, you had to have a triple rectifier and a PRS and drop D, otherwise you were not part of the scene in the late 90s, early 2000s in LA.
Well, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm just an old fuck. I'm an old man and I like what I like. But man, that era to me is garbage. To me personally. The 90s era. That 90s era.
Oh yeah.
To me, that's garbage.
Oh man.
And I'm gonna get a lot of flack for that. I'm gonna get a lot of flack because I'm the guy that speaks my mind, and God forbid, Dave Nesdahl says that a $400 guitar is a piece of shit.
Now everybody can have their own thing. But for me, when Mesa, I love the Lone Star. I love the Stiletto. I love the Electrodyne. I love the Mark series. I love all of those amplifiers. I mean, and I like a rectifier too. I mean, there is a sonic space in my head that only a rectifier can fill.
Yeah.
And when an amplifier company can define something to that level of detail, that's success.
Yeah, no, and I think and I can backing up on this is I think in the late 90s, 2000s, when I came to LA, there was a little bit of that syndrome of people thinking because I have a dual rectifier, I'm a better player. And I think there was a lot of that going around. You went to the local clubs and people showed up with $3,500 Paul Reed Smiths and triple rectifiers, but then even the two chords that tried to play on stage weren't in tune. And I think there was a little bit of us, who have a degree in music and can do a living or afford the gear. And then these guys have all that shit because daddy bought it for them, but can't play 2 chords. And there was a lot of that going around in LA at the time, and you couldn't, I remember people wouldn't let me into a band. Hey, do you have a triple rectifier and a Paul Reed Smith? I'm like, nah, man, I have an $800 Ibanez and a 5150 combo, which weighs 300 pounds. But I'll tell you one thing, I can play. They're like, oh, no, we don't care, man. We need the Paul Reed Smith, Limp Bizkit kind of POD thing, man. Otherwise, you're not a serious player. And I really got that shit on the phone back then, So, but that doesn't mean the amps weren't great. It's just, I think we all have an emotional identifier with a certain era of music, don't we? And LA is always very unique. Those time periods, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, when Mesa came onto my radar, it was because my understanding at the time was that Sykes used a Mark III on the Whitesnake '87 record, and with me being a Sykes nut, I just had to have it. And it's like you said earlier, Marco, when I looked into being a young man. And when I looked in the price of what a Mark III was going to be, a Coliseum head was going to be, I was like, well, that might as well be $1 million. I'll never, ever be able to afford that. And so I was completely content with my JCM 800, because that's what I had at the time,
That's a good thing to be content with,
I just want to say something. Bozique in the chat says, I agree with Dave Nesdol about the music, but the gear was good. Mesa rectifiers and PRS custom 24s are legit. I'm not saying they aren't good. They are good. There are tons of people that love it. I'm talking about me personally. I'm not saying as a fact, don't get a rectifier or a PRS custom 24. They suck. Because of course they don't, but it's not my cup of tea.
Right.
And people always mistake stuff that I say, like I say certain things suck. For me, they do. I don't make decisions for anyone else. If you like something, you go damn well get it, and fall in love with it. As far as I'm concerned, you can make it sound good. I can't.
Play what you like. That's
exactly. You play what you like. So when I make a statement like that, I'm not stating a fact. I'm stating an opinion, my opinion. So, yes, I didn't like the music. I don't like that gear, but that's just me because that gear reminds me of that music.
I'm the same way. It's so funny. Listen, the gear, whether you like it or not, the gear is phenomenal. But I associate it with a period of music that I genuinely detest because I think it put a lot of players that can play out of opportunities, and I don't remember seeing any band in that period that justified the gear they played. So I'm with you. The gear is phenomenal, but I didn't hate the game. I hated the players.
Larry Mitchell in chat wants to know what my cup of tea is. Larry, you're my cup of tea.
On that note,
well, listen, Marco, we could stay here all night and talk about gear. You must come back at some time in the future and do a part 2 with us.
It will be an absolute honor.
It's been phenomenal having you. Our distinguished moderator, Mr. Ben Coombs, has posted links to your content in our chat. We encourage all of you to follow Marco, stay in touch with him online. He produces great music and great YouTube content. And Dave and I can't thank you enough, Marco, for agreeing to our conversation tonight.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute privilege, and I think you just pulled the words out of my mouth. I could talk to you guys for 12 hours straight.
Well, good, because we're going to ask you to do a second one. Will you do a second one with us?
I consider it done, man. I hope I did your channel justice, and as a fan of music and gear, I thank you for doing it, because if today one person gets something out of this, then I feel we already did a great thing.
Amen.
And just, there's nothing better for me than to walk away now and go into rehearsal and feel I got something out of this because I did. And that that's rare in itself today, you know, to walk away from people and feel like you have a connection. So thanks are for me to you guys, and I appreciate you doing this. I hope you keep doing it, and I'm a fan. I support and I hope you guys do well, and I can't wait to come back. If you guys will have me back and you think I do the channel, this man, just give me a date, and if the people didn't hate me too much today, then I'd be more than happy to come back, because I feel there's so much more to dive into, you know.
There is a lot more to dive into with you, and they did love you, and we love you, and if you will just stay with us for 1 minute when we go off air, and we'll say goodbye to you off air. Sure. I just want to say goodbye for me and Ty to everyone. We'll see you all next week, and we'll leave you with this.